Christmas comes but every day of the year. We're taking a quick peek at Season's Beatings. Season's Beatings is a Christmas-themed first-person shooter developed by Code Avarice. It's got the ridiculously fast combat from something like Hotline Miami, but puts it in a first-person perspective. If you ever played Super Hot, but went out of your way to not use the slow-motion time mechanic that the game is built around, then you kind of have an idea of what you're in for with Season's Beatings. Code Avarice has had experience with FPS games since that's all they've released so far. Their first game, Paranautical Activity, is not only a great pun, but mixed first-person shooting with roguelike level generation, and was about shooting demons in a weird ship. While Arcshot was a multiplayer-focused archery game. Both play rather quickly with fast movement and quick deaths, but neither of them are anywhere near as fast as this game. Season's Beatings has one-hit kills across the board. This means that while enemies die to pretty much anything, so do you. Just about an intense look for too long is enough to put you in the ground. It's probably one of the fastest games I've ever played. That being said, speed isn't everything, and the game is rather limited. Story is basically non-existent, graphics look bland, and level design is completely flat with mostly 90-degree angles like back in the days of Wolfenstein 3D, although with the ability to move your camera up and down and jumping. Jumping is something you'll be doing a lot, since it's very much a core feature of the game. Pressing the spacebar at any time will cause players to dive across the room like Shawnee Miller in the 2016 Olympics, which is a reference nobody's going to understand. Diving is the quickest way to move short distances and get the drop on enemies, as well as being the most you can do to dodge attacks. It's also good for getting over tables or smashing through windows to make a cool entrance into a room before inevitably getting shot in the face. Hitting enemies with a dive will cause them to be knocked over and stunned for a short period of time. Unfortunately, it doesn't make them drop their weapons, so as soon as they stand back up, they're probably going to hit you if you're close enough. But it is somewhat of a saving grace to give you a couple of seconds to get around these guys. Enemies in Season's Beatings are extremely lethal with quick reaction times and are rather accurate, annoyingly so. It doesn't take much for them to get the upper hand, but they aren't perfect. Quick thinking as well as memorization of a level's layout is key for dealing with them, as it's possible to not only dodge bullets, but also get enemies to kill each other, which means one less person you have to deal with. There are only two classes of weapons in Season's Beatings, melee and guns, but the game gets a lot out of them. Melee weapons are best for close-up attacks, but can also be thrown to knock enemies over or even kill them if you're throwing a sharp weapon. Guns, on the other hand, are a bit more finicky. Code Avarice went for a very minimal heads-up display when designing the game, to the point that there isn't one at all. There's no way to know how many bullets are in a gun when you're holding it, nor is there any kind of reloading. The good news is that enemies can't reload either, so once they fire all their shots, the only thing they can do is stand around and try to look threatening. The bad news is that if enemies fire all the bullets in a gun, then there aren't any left for you to use. Weapons on the ground are color-coded to help give players an idea of how many shots they have left in them. Green weapons are full, yellow weapons have been fired at least once, while red ones are completely empty. It's easy to tell how many shots something like the double-barrel shotgun has, since it only has 2, while other weapons like the pistol or Tommy gun can be a bit more difficult. Pistols have a maximum of 4 shots, which can be kept track of by keeping count of how many you fire at a time, while the Tommy gun has something like 20 rounds in it and shoots so fast it's almost impossible to determine how many are being fired at once. While human enemies use both guns and melee weapons, you really want to keep your eye out for dogs. Dogs are fast, extremely lethal, and can be rather annoying to try to hit. There's a lot of them too to deal with, and it's very easy for these things to come out of nowhere and put you down. Although, I do really start to feel bad about having to kill so many of them.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Visually, the game is somewhat reminiscent of Die Hard, as it takes place across 25 floors of an office building, but I feel like it could have done more to lean into the Christmas theme. Sure, there are lights hung around the office, and enemies wear green and red suits with Santa hats, but it's pretty much all they do to get across any kind of holiday theme. Season's Beatings could easily not be a holiday game at all, and it has a lot of wasted potential. The game could really have gone crazy with its setting by having holiday and office-themed weapons, like hitting enemies with a giant plastic candy cane or shooting them with a stapler, but it never goes that far. There isn't much story-wise to keep people engaged either. The basic plot is that you're stuck in a never-ending Christmas party while people want you dead, but there's never any reason behind it given. The only way to escape is to complete all 25 levels, and the only way to complete a level is to kill all of the enemies in it, dogs included. But that's really it. To try and add some replayability to its levels, Season's Beatings uses a kind of challenge or achievement system to unlock new levels, weapons, and even cheats. Each level has 4 snowflakes to earn within it, one for finishing a level, one for completing it with only melee weapons, one for only using guns, and finally one for finishing it within a time limit. It's impossible to get all 4 of them at once, since using only melee weapons or only guns contradict each other, and players have to get a minimum amount of snowflakes in order to play every level in the game. There is a kind of ending, if you want to call it that, if you beat every level, which is basically just a black screen saying, "You win!" So the real goal is just to get all of the snowflakes. Unlocking weapons makes them available to both you and enemies, as what weapons they're equipped with is randomized every time a level starts. And I mean every time. Enemies that use guns will always have a gun, but which gun they will have is different every time the level loads up. And the more options that are available leads to more randomness. This can make trying to complete specific snowflakes, such as only using guns, more difficult, as players are reliant on the maximum amount of bullets in every gun in a level in order to complete it. Meaning that if every shot is fired before all the enemies are killed, then the only thing to do is restart. There also feels like a bit of inconsistency to enemy actions. When something spots you, it'll run at you until it gets within range to attack, but the biggest thing is how the game handles noise. Firing weapons can attract a lot of attention, and it's difficult to tell who is going to be affected by it when it happens. Sometimes it feels like different enemies react to a gunshot from the same location, and due to one-hit kills, you can easily become overwhelmed. Season's Beatings is able to avoid some issues that a game like Hotline Miami has due to its perspective. Since it's first person instead of top-down, it's easier to see enemies from longer distances, meaning that there's less of a chance of getting shot by someone off-screen due to them being too far away to be within the frame of the camera. Although, due to the first-person perspective, players' vision of the overall level layout as well as enemy placement and what they're equipped with is very limited. I'm not sure if one perspective is objectively better than the other, but it does make for a unique way to play a game with similar mechanics. Overall, Season's Beatings is a solid game. You can use a bit more polish here and there, especially with the visuals, since everything looks pretty generic and enemies tend to look alike. Physicists also like to freak out sometimes when bodies get thrown around, but for the most part, the game does a good job at what it sets out to do. I really do wish Code Avarice had run with the idea a bit more by diving into the holiday and office themes, but the game is a lot of fun mechanically regardless, and that's the core to making any game, really. Diving around a room while dodging bullets is never not enjoyable, and while completing some of the challenges to unlock snowflakes can get annoying, the unlocks for them are generally worth it. There's all kinds of cheats to use, such as a max pain mode where time slows down when you dive through the air, or a super hot mode where time only moves when you do. You can't unlock new snowflakes while using these kind of cheats, but they do a lot to get as much out of the game's 25 levels as it can. If you're a fan of first-person shooters or challenging games in general, I'd suggest giving Season's Beatings a shot. I had the opportunity to do some testing with this game while it was being made, and it's been interesting to watch it develop over time to not only a good Christmas-themed game, but also a good game in general. That's all for now. Please let me know what you think about the game or this video in the comments section. I'm MegapieMan. I'll talk to you guys later. Want to see more quick peeks? Click on the video on the left for Rising Storm 2 Vietnam, a realistic FPS set within the Vietnam War. Or click on the video on the right for Darkwood, a top-down survival horror game set within a threatening forest.